Hello. Today I want to look at the issues that's going on in the Middle East and Israel and Gaza from a little bit different perspective. In our club, we have the Perplex Club. We call it the Perplex Club. And it's international group of people who love each other, have very different backgrounds, right and left political opinions, right and left religious opinions, but we respect each other and we like to learn from each other. We have people from different nationalities, different religions, different convictions, and the starting point is love and respect and desire to learn from another perspective, even though this perspective can be completely different or somewhat different, completely different from my own or my friend. So we'll talk about the conflict today. The conflict today is presented oftentimes. The news are all over. Israel and Gaza war. It's not really conflict. The main issue is not a conflict between the Israel and Gaza, or between Israel and Palestinians, or between Israelis and Arabs, or between Israel and Muslims, between Jews and Muslims. It's really something entirely different. And let me explain what I think of this. And I want to preface this with a great respect to you, the viewer, who may be Jewish or Christians or Muslim or Hindu or any other religion or non-religious atheist or agnostic completely. I want to offer my respect to your views. I don't know your views, but I only express my views. And I'll humbly offer to you that if you find I'm wrong or my facts are misstated, please correct. I'm only human and I only have limited understanding, knowledge of history, of culture, of customs, conflicts, and so on. So the conflict, in my view, that happens now is not a conflict on a local scale. We, Jews and Arabs, are more than cousins. We are brothers. As we later will discuss it, we all come from Abraham, and we are brothers. We're family. And in a family, as you know, there's always feud. There's always misunderstanding. This brother doesn't talk to this brother for years. This brother offended this. This brother didn't share in the real estate. This brother didn't get the money divided correctly, or the sister. And all this faribble, as we call it in Yiddish, is causing conflict. Where in reality, deep inside, we are together. And we will be together even further, as I'll get to it. So I want to express my deep love as a Jew for my brother Arabs and sisters, and for any other core religionists or non-core religionists. So in order to understand the conflict, in my view, you have to go back not to 1948 or to 19th centuries or 18th centuries, but let's go all the way back. Let's get it all the way back. If you're not a religious person listening to that, you can take it from the evolutionary standpoint. Something happened, the Big Bang, amoeba, and ultimately humanity evolved. We all developed, still from one source. Religious people will feel there was a creation, and then on the 6 days of creation, Adam, the first man, was created. And Adam was created, then Eve was given to him as a wife, and we all come from him. I come from them, you come from him, all our prophets come from them, Moses comes from them, Muhammad comes from them, Christ comes from them. We all come from the same man. And that man, according to Jewish Kabbalah, is concentrations of all souls. From that first man, all souls spread out in the world. But we're not going to get too deep into the Kabbalah. That's not the topic right now. So humanity always wanted to explain. Humanity, especially in the beginning of the evolution, was always afraid of the nature, the thunder and lightning and threats. And humanity always wanted to protect itself by believing that something or somebody will protect me, and that something is somebody, some forces of nature, some divine God or gods. That essentially was human desire to understand something and respect something and love something beyond just me. That's a natural desire of curiosity. What happens? Who created us? What's our purpose? Why are we here? Are we here just to eat? Are we here to procreate? Are we here also to help others, even if others don't behave exactly like us? So Judaism, just jumping over 2,000 years past the creation, Judaism is roughly 4,000 years old. Christianity, which is evolution from the Judaism essentially, is approximately 2,000 years old. And Islam is approximately 1,300 years old. Muhammad, in the 7th century Common Era, studied the Islam religions, and until that point, whether you're talking about 4,000, 2,000, or 1,300 years, that is not to claim who was here first, because 4,000 years or 1,300 years in the eyes of God, they're all just a blink of an eye. It's nothing comparing to the whole idea of love and a plan that God had for all of us humans, not just Jews, not just Muslims, not just Christians, not just Hindus, but not just atheists, but for everybody. So Abraham, the progenitor for the beginner for the Arabs and Jews, was 10 generations after Noah. Well, Noah was 10 generations after Adam. And at the times of Noah, people didn't do too good. People believed in God. Adam and Eve were good, believing people, even though, as we know, also they have the initial sin by eating an apple that God says, don't touch that. And they did, whatever the reason. But then, ultimately, humanity started to have their evolution, and little by little they forgot about God. They started to deviate from the concepts of the Torah, of the Quran, of the Bible. At the time, of course, it wasn't called that, but it was God's law that He presented to Adam, from which all other laws, the Torah, Quran, essentially emanate. So people forgot about it, and God says, not that I made a mistake, but I have to make an adjustment, send the flood, and we all know the story of Noah. 3 sons of Noah, Ham, Japheth, and Shem, came out. From Ham come mostly the continent of Africa. From Japheth, it's mostly Europeans and eastern part, China, Iran. That's the descendants of Japheth. From Shem comes Semites. And those tribes, at that time, they were not called Arabs. They're called Semitic tribes. I'm part of that Semitic tribes, just as much as Mahmoud Abbas from the West Bank, Samaria, Judea, whichever way you want to call it. He comes in from the same tribe of Semites. We're brothers. Yasser Arafat one time said, semi-jokingly, we're all cousins, but he was a little bit wrong, because it's nice to say cousins, but we're even better than cousins. We're actually brothers, half brothers, because Abraham had 2 wives, Sarah and Hagar, Keturah. We differ. Jews believe that Sarah was his main wife and Isaac was his main son, and the Muslims believe that it was Isaac who was his main son and Keturah, Hagar was his main wife. Well, we can look at it differently, and that's okay. In his case, he had 2 wives. Okay? Doesn't matter which one, number 1, number 2. He had 2 wives. And they probably got along too good. Although Torah says there was some friction. Hey, imagine, if you have 2 wives, you probably will have friction at home, no matter what. So I sympathize with Abraham's struggle. What am I going to do? I mean, which one do I kiss first when I come home? that's obviously was an issue. Anyway, we have some differences in tradition between the Muslims, Arabs, and us Jews. And which wife was the most important, the first wife. Anyway, descendants from Ham. Ham had 4 kids. 2 of them, more known, Mitzrayim, the name for Egypt, and Canaan. Canaanites came in the land of Canaan, which is where 7 nations, the Jews that exited Egypt later on, during Exodus from Egypt, I'm jumping through the history, were commanded by God to remove. Again, we're not going to interpretation of was it nice, was it not nice. From the nation standpoint here, from Canaanite nation, Hivite, Hittites, Avi, and so forth, they were defending their land. From their standpoint, Jews were invaders. Remember, Abraham came from Ur Kasdim, from essentially from the where Babel, Tower of Babel was. I guess Abraham didn't take it very nicely to the Tower of Babel. So the local people, they didn't behave very good. There was a lot of perversions going on, murder and whatnot. But even though they were not very nice, God says, I had enough of them. From their standpoint, Jews were invaded. So Jews did invade Canaan. And what was in Canaan? From the seven nations, one of the nations were the nations that called Philistines, Philistines at that time. Why? Because from a son of Ham came in descendants into the island of Crete, known in the past as a Caphricene. They live in Crete, which is the south of Greece right now. From the Canaan came seven nations, and one of the Canaanites' descendants, Avim, one of his sons, lived in the area where today is Gaza. Later on in history, and of course, if you have different historical facts, let me know, please correct me. But archaeology and the Jewish knowledge and Arabs' knowledge and Christianity, I believe, will all know, historians, religious historians, and non-religious historians, that from Crete, from Caphricene, came in invaders. And invaders in Hebrew, lefrush, to invade. Laplush, Philistine. They came, which are descendants of Mitzrayim, and invaded descendants of Canaan, Avaim. They were cousins. They invaded them, and that's why they are called invaders. And the name stuck, and they became Philistines, so they were descendants of Ham, not Semites. They're not related ethnically to neither Arabs nor Jews. And they stayed in the area of Gaza. That was many years ago, thousands of years ago. I'm not making an equation with what they're today. Today things change. A long time ago they changed. So Jews leave Egypt and they cross over Joshua 3,300 years ago, roughly, 3296 or so. Moses' right-hand guy, and Joshua crosses over into the land of Canaan, and the Jews eventually becoming a Jewish kingdom with eventually King Saul, King David, King Solomon, and many, many kings dynasty. That happens kind of a little bit along the history, say 3,000 years ago in the rough terms. Jumping through history, about 2,000 years ago, Christianity started. And then during that time, Romans didn't like what's going on in the land of the Jews. There was no really Muslim there yet. Muhammad was not even born yet. There's still 700 years before Muhammad comes on the picture. So Jews live here in this area of Canaan, which is now Israel at that time. And then Romans fighting it. And Romans actually didn't mean to destroy the temple. Romans wanted to occupy it, and they wanted Jews basically to pay taxes. And many Jewish sages, many religious people say, hey, let's take it easy. Let's not take the boat. Let's live together. We're occupied by the Romans, but it will pass. Everything will be okay. But many zealots were not happy with that, and they want to have the independence. Rightly so, this is their land. They rebelled to the point Romans said, we have enough of it. They came in, destroyed the first temple, and exiled the Jews all over the world. They went to Northern Africa, Egypt, Libya, Morocco, on and on to Spain, on to Europe, all over the world, to Iraq, to Greece, to Turkey, eventually landed in Poland, Germany, and Russia. And so that's the diaspora of the Jews all over the world. Okay, but not all Jews left. Some group always stayed, and of course, as you know, Jews in their prayers ever since would say next year in Jerusalem, Hashanah Aba'ah B'Yerushalayim. Their prayers will return one day, but it wasn't easy to return. The land was desolate. There was a swampland. There was nothing there. It was under the Roman control. Eventually, that Roman control ceased to the invading Arab armies under Muhammad. Muhammad in the 7th century came to the picture and he unified Arab tribes. Our tribes, we Jews are part of that tribes, except we left early. Abraham left earlier. But now the rest of our family, our brothers and sisters, they from the isolated clannish ways came together as Muhammad, learning from Judaism, learning from Christianity, respecting Judaism, respecting Christianity. He put together, of course, according to the Muslim traditions, and I have no problems believing that. And Muhammad was given that prophecy by angel Gabriel, and basically Gabriel told him, if you read in the Quran, that Jews are people of the book, love them, live with them together. They, we hope, live good together peacefully with you. And your mission is to bring the word of God to the world, just like it is a mission of the Jews to bring the word of God to the world, just as it is the mission of the Christians to bring the word of God to the world, just like the mission of any other tradition, any tradition of the good intending people, which we all are. We all come from Adam. So, the unity in family beats the unity in multiculturalism. Arabs and Jews have a lot in common. We have language essentially the same, almost the same. We have the same food, falafel. We love it. We often argue which falafel better, Arabic or Jewish falafel. You can't tell the difference. Shish kebab, hospitality. You go to Arab home. Today in Israel, Jews visit Arab families and Arabs visit Jewish families and have a great time together. Today, somewhat the relation is strained because the situation got a little bit out of control, but fundamentally deep inside, we Jews and our Arabs know that we are Semites, not anti-Semites, but Semites. We know that. And we deep inside know that some external force like Iran is trying to come in, who are not really our descendants bloodline, ethnically. They try to take control of the religion, of the Islam, and tell us we're Islamists and we know how to do things. We Arabs sometimes think, well, it's very nice. There you go, by the Prophet's religion, but you're still not part of the family. Jews are part of the family. So it becomes like two brothers are fighting. And another guy comes in and tells, hey, knock it off. Two brothers tell him, who are you to get involved? Get out of here. And they keep on fighting. That's unfortunately almost like kids. It's been happening to us, Jews and Arabs, for a long time. And it has to stop, and it will stop. So, jumping on, comes in the war, the First World War. By that time, Turks, Ottoman Empire, from about 1500, 1517, I believe, or something like that, Ottoman Empire takes over this land. Romans are no longer in the pictures. Now Ottomans come in and they are now controlling Arabs and Jews who live there. And Arabs will say probably the majority of populations were Arabs. Jews were a small minority. Jews might say, no, we're a majority. Even most of the Jews would not say we're a majority. We're splitting here. We were there, they were there, we lived there together, and mostly peacefully. And mostly didn't like the fact that Turks took over control. And Turks didn't claim that to be their land. They say, this is colony. They pay taxes, it is now rule, Turkish rule. Official languages of the Ottoman Empire, of the Palestine, was actually Turkish, English, I'm sorry, not in Turkish. It was English, Arabic, and Hebrew. And on the documents it say, Medina, Israel, and Hebrew, although it said Palestine. And why is Palestine again? So when Romans, coming back 2,000 years ago, destroyed in their anger the resistance of the Jews, they say, if you were so nasty against us, you fought us, you didn't want to submit to our control, we're not going to call this land Israel. We're going to call this land Palestina. Why? Because remember the Philistine that came before the history started, even like before Abraham Avinu, when they came there and took over the land and took over Gaza. Philistines were one of the nations, one of the 7 nations that took over Gaza. And we're going to call it Palestina. And that's how Palestine essentially became Palestine. The British essentially coined the name to stick it to the Jews You're not coming back. This is a Palestine right now. By the way, they even call it Arabina because it wasn't Arabina. It was Palestine. Philistine by then are gone, disappeared, merged. It's now only Arabs and Jews essentially in that area by that time. Arabs and Jews, Jews and Arabs, either way you want it, doesn't matter. So the First World War begins, 1914, 1917, Britain wins, Germany loses, and Britain is giving mandate. The world powers cut the map. This is for you, this is for you, this is for me, this is for me, for you. Palestine, former Israel. Now, Palestine, according to the British, they took over the Roman name. Palestine. So Jews who live here, they also call themselves Palestinians. They live in Palestine. That's what Roman called it 2,000 years ago. So British saying, we're going to divide this land. Because at that time, Jews were already started to come in more mass, even before 1948. In 1800s, Theodor Herzl, that held Zionist movement. And what's Zionism? Zionism doesn't sometimes sound nasty in the mouths of those who want to make it sound now. But Zionist is return to Zion. It's like in a movie. What's this movie in, I forget, in Matrix? There's a Zion. Zion is a Mount Zion. It's a mountain where the first temple stood and the second temple stood. That's a mountain. Jews want to come back to Jerusalem. Hashanah Haba'ah B'Yerushalayim. They want to come back to Zion. That's just return to our land. Not to displace Arabs. There's a plenty of them. It's not a big land, but it's plenty enough to live for the Arabs and for the Jews. And in fact, together with our brothers, Arabs, we can cultivate it. We can put agriculture. Let's work in it together. That's what the return of the Jews meant to be. Yes, we want to escape pogroms, but we want to take the land of Arabs. But there's a desert land, right? The piece of land somewhere in Haifa owned by the Turkish landlord who actually lives in Turkey somewhere, and he's leasing his land to the Arab. And this piece, his land, he leasing to the Jew. And they buy and sell it to each other. That trade is going on all the time. So Jews came in and they bought this land, not forcefully with the arms. At least that before 1948. Okay, so Britain now says, well, there's a lot of now friction starting because as a number of Jews increase, Arabs said, why these guys are coming here? This is our land. Well, at that time, it wasn't asked, or what do you mean it's your land? Oh, you live here? Yeah, I respect that. But Jews also live here. Arabs at the time doesn't say, it doesn't matter, it's our land. It was a little bit selfish, I think. Instead of saying, listen, guys, cousins, brothers, come, let's plenty of land. Your people already living here. We're helping them. They've been helping us. More of you come. We have room. If you have a 10 rooms apartment and your brother comes in, will you tell him, I can't give you one room? Share with me. If Arabs came to us, we will say, listen, if we have a room for you, go ahead, take it. I'll help you. I'll bring you trucks. I'll bring you irrigation. I'll do all that. So unfortunately, and some of the hospitality did happen. Some coexistence between Arabs and Jews did. They did help each other, but not all. So in 1947, United Nations said, we're going to recognize the state of Israel, the right of the Jews to have their state. It's historically exactly what I'm saying right now. That's what United Nations said. Arabs didn't like it. Arabs said, no, we don't recognize. Well, Arabs could have said, okay, they recognize their state, and we recognize our state. Let's sit together and work out. Are you guys going to live in Haifa? I'm going to live in Ramallah. Are you guys going to live in Tel Aviv? I'm going to live in Hebron, or whatever. And some cities, listen, if you Jews live in Tel Aviv and also Arabs also live there, fine. If you live in Hebron, mostly Arabs, and some Jews live here, that's fine. Let's get together. Have to get together for coffee. Nothing wrong. But that was not the ego, the personal self-righteousness was so strong that desire to reach out. Are you coming? You're the invader. That was happening. Not from all. There was a lot of peace-loving people on both sides. In 1948, the State of Israel was created. Arabs at that time said, wow, you created the state? Jews said, yeah, we created a state. Create your own too, right next to us. In the West Bank, in the Judea, Samaria. The land of Judea stands for land of Judah, one of the tribes of Israel, of Jacob, son of Jacob. It wasn't called some Arab name, it was Judea. And now they call it West Bank because on the west side of the Jordan. So when Britain was splitting the land in two, it meant that from the west, from a Jordan River, from a river to the sea, it will be a Jewish state. And from a river to another sea, Euphrates, to the east, that's what Jordan is, that will be the Arab state. And that's what Jordan, Transjordan at the time, was supposed to be. In fact, the West Bank was part of Jordan in 1948, and Gaza was part of Egypt in 1948. The states were already created, but Arabs didn't want that. Most of them didn't want that. And the five Arab armies, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Egypt, and Jordan, invaded Israel. We all know about 1948 war. Israel had a tough time with that, but Israel, miraculously, won. And the state of Israel survived. It took about maybe 10, 15 years to kind of get built and then breathe a sign of relief. During this time, Arabs accepted the fact that that's going to be, and eventually Jordan and Egypt made peace with Israel and normalization started. But not from all. The local population still resented that because many of the Arabs in the Palestine ran away. They were told by the Arabs invading armies, get out of the way so we can massacre the Jews. I think it will be honest to admit some of the bad things was done by the Jews against Arabs. Yes, some of the settlements, I don't know historically which ones. I'm not enough of a historical, but not everything was kosher. There were probably excesses on the Jewish side as well. But the main instigation was for the Arabs to leave. Arabs did it from the best intention from their view. They didn't want to hurt their people. They want them to live just like Jews now doing in Gaza. They want to go after Hamas, and the peaceful people get out of the way. That's what Arabs were trying to do from their standpoint. So that created the refugees from Israel. And we can debate. Arabs probably listening to me say, no, it was all Jews kicked the Arabs out. And the Jews will say, no, it mostly Arab armies instigated the Arabs to leave. But I think both sides agree, Arab and Jews, that there was some misdeeds done on both sides. At least on that we can agree. That certain things were not kosher by the Arabs, and certain things were not kosher by the Jews. Overall, the refugees, people run away. Whoever tell them to leave, Jews or Arabs, doesn't matter. They left, and as far as they and their family, it wasn't a nice thing. It was a tough situation for them. And I agree with it. And most Jews agree with it. And Arabs agree with that. Fortunately, Arabs did not, Jordanians, for example, didn't absorb them. Jordan today, 70% is Palestinians, people from this land. So that's just less, that history is known. I'm not going to spend too much time with that. Okay. So continue with the religion. All of us, Christians, Jews, Arabs, in their holy books, in the Torah, which Arabs, Muslims admit as we're people of the book, the Jews, in Quran and Christianity, the main thing is love. Quran talks about the Allah, I forget how omnipotent, the merciful, the loving, the merciful. It's mercy, love. That's what Quran said right there. Every verse begins, Allah the merciful. Judaism also talks to the merciful God. Christianity admits love. Christianity said that if you hit your one chick, give it another chick. It's probably a little bit too much into excesses of love and not enough for defense of yourself. If you really get humiliated, perhaps we can debate that. But all three religions basically talk about goodness and among humans. But ego and self-importance and self-absorbance and not admitting in the perplexity of yourself, not knowing everything, prevented not all, but many from that. And it's a human nature to say, I'm right. And when I'm listening to your argument, I'm just waiting until you're done talking so I can tell you how wrong you are. Instead of listening, say, an interesting standpoint. I don't know if I agree with that, but let me think, let me sleep on that, and maybe tomorrow we'll talk more about it. Let me look into that. I didn't know some fact. That approach is not very common today, and it should be. So, then at the same time, having the fact that Arabs and Jews are essentially united more than they realize. We're brothers and sisters. We have so much in common. Singing, dancing. It's amazing how great it is. You're driving in Israel in the street, you hear Arab music, you hear Jewish music. You can't tell the difference. It's so amazing how close we are. Funny, you would say. So the West, in the meantime, the West, Europe and America, essentially, kept on going in the industrialization. And the West started to feel that that is what really God is. It's the Tower of Babel renowned. And by the way, all religious, Muslims, Jews, and Christians recognize the downfall of Western society. We're united in that. Many times, the Arab Muslim leaders in Israel and religious rabbis get together against people walking down the street without the shirts and crazy and a hair painted blue and being crazy and yelling and screaming with the flags against decency. So Arabs are known to have a very decent culture in terms of modesty. Look at Arab women. They dress so nicely, so beautifully. We Jews, our Jewish women, I have to say, learn from that. That's a message God is giving us. Look how modest they are. Arabs have to take some point from it. Look how peaceful Jews are. Oh, no, they're not peaceful. You occupy. Well, let's not go back to that argument. So let's find the good in us. Let's not concentrate on the minuses. So the West had to create its own religion. If you are technologically advanced, if you can make genomes, if you can synthesis, you can grow vegetables artificially, you can do all that stuff, then why do you need God? I mean, there's a joke like that the Western civilization came to God and said, we don't need you anymore. We now have artificial intelligence. We can do it. We can create a human being. We can do everything. So God said, oh, yeah, create a human being? I'm going to leave. You win. But before I win, can you do one more test? Yeah. Okay, go ahead, make him. I make a man. I made a man from dust. Can you make it from dust? Oh, sure. We can take the dust and we'll put it in the special synthesizer and we'll take all the minerals and vitamins and all that and the man will come out. Technology can do it. God said, well, go ahead. Show me. And the guy said, okay, let's take some dust. You have to hold it. Hold a minute. Get your own dust. It's an interesting story. So that is the Western civilization want to construct another Tower of Babel. America is known to that even more than Europe. And intellectual people who studied, professors in academia, intelligentsia, who was obviously in their eyes much more refined and elevated versus us backward thinking religious Jews, backward thinking religious Muslims, Christians who want to have an all believe that Christ really did some miracles. That was all that so much against the Western civilization, believe in freedom. If I want to marry 3 women and a dog, and sorry for using this, and a man, and this, and a table, I want to get a license that the state will give me the license that I'm officially married to the table and the chair. I have a right to do that. I have a right to anything I want. That is the Star of Babel started to build, and Hashem, God is looking down, Allah is looking down, and they said, what the heck are you children, my children, doing? Over time, that indoctrination of the young people in universities by the professors that knew better, intellectually can figure out what to do, poisoned the minds of the people. Good young kids. Especially now coming back to today's situation in America when people protest. If you ask, okay, you can protest if you feel that the Jews are oppressing the Arabs, Palestinians. All right, you can right to do that, but you can sit down and say, well, let's go through a history lesson we just did and see how we're going to solve it together. Instead, and you ask them, where exactly is this river? They say maybe it's Volga or maybe Mississippi. And where exactly? And then the hatred against a poor Jewish guy, owner of cafe in Arkansas or South Dakota or California gets attacked because he is Jewish. Even though that guy might not even be religious, never been to Israel, actually doesn't like Israel. He is Jewish, but he is he's self-hating Jew, as we say. And he gets attacked. He was the first one, according to Hitler, he will be going to a gas chamber just like the religious Jews. Just like in their mind, all the Jewish professors in universities who support that craziness that's going on in colleges, they will be in a gas chamber, God forbid, if Hitler was in power. They don't understand. But that's what's going on here. And that is really a fight now between light and darkness. On the side of the light, I have to say, not anything against agnostics or atheists. There's a lot of good people, agnostic and atheists, in Israel, in America, in Europe, in the Muslim world, in Palestine, where I lived, in Israel, and in America, where I also live. There is a lot of people who are not religious. There is a not religious Jews, not religious, or at least not observant Muslims. But every Muslim, or most of them Muslims, have a deep, innate reverence, respect for Quran. And every Jewish guy, even not religious at all, the guy who is changing spark plugs in his car on Shabbat or going to the beach, still touches and kisses mezuzah when he walks into a cafe. He still covers his head like this if he's in presence of the prayer, if he doesn't have a kippah. It's innate reverence, it's innate respect for your tradition, for your God by the Jews, by the Muslims, and by the Christians. That's what unites us. And opposition side is using the reason for the land, for territorial dispute, as a fuel for the agenda against an anti-God. People on the top layers of the Tower of Babel are pointing to God and waving their fist to God. God, we don't need you, we hate you. And they use the crises and arguments among friends, among brothers. They fuel this and they make the situation what it is. And therefore, there are extremes in every society, in every religion, and extremes, I have to now say it, in the extremes among Jews are extremists, among Christians, I don't know. But of course, historically speaking, in the past, Inquisition and Crusaders wasn't such a nice thing. The Christians have their own history to account for. It evolved, it modified, it modernized, and today Christianity is not the Christianity of the Spain of the 15th century. Jews went also 4,000 years of refinement and learning to live with other people. And Jews don't claim the same to be a superior nation. Jews claim only that they have received the Torah from God with a mission. Not going too much to Kabbalah, Zohar, but basically the upper world, spiritual world of God, Ein Sof, infinite light, shining his light through the layers of Atzilut, Biriya, Yetzirah, and Asiya down to us. He made it a goal. He says, I created you with a free will and I created you and I put it in the lowest world in order for you to try to help to bring the light of divinity into the physicality. And you, Jews, Muslims, Christians, and other religions, that's what you're supposed to do. And non-religious people, you have to do it as well. You have to do it as well. If not religious at all, help with a construction project, help with park, help something, not only for yourself, but for society. I gave you all, Muslims, Jews, Christians, and all, I gave you your missions to do, not to attack each other, not to claim that you are the true religion, and these are all people wrong, but to say, well, you practice differently because you have a different customs, and we practice differently. Let's talk about each other. Not to find flaws, but to find strengths, that what your religion brings to mine to complement it, and what mine brings to yours to complement it. Unfortunately, on the Jewish side, there were extremes. On the Christian side, there were extremes in 15th century, as I mentioned. On the Muslim side as well. And Hamas today has in my estimate, has a real conviction coming from the trueness of their hearts. They believe that is their mission of the all Muslims, to bring the world of God to the world and to make the world the way the Quran tells it to be. Many of these Muslims, and I know sometimes, don't really know the details of Quran. Many of them haven't read it. They recite the prayers just like many Jews recite the prayers without knowing it. I'm not saying all the Jews, but there are some. I'm sure some Christians recite the prayers without understanding what's inside of them. So that fringe of the Muslim society, with a zeal to exterminate anybody who's on the way, and the Jews the most comfortable target to do because they happen to be geographically right there. it will be more difficult to exterminate North Dakota or Canadians who also oppose that law because they're too far. But the Jews taking that land, and especially when you fuel this with now political aspect, Jews came and stole your land. Then you can start up the people. You can start up non-religious Arabs, non-religious population. Next thing you know, there's a hatred and the cycle of violence going back and forth, and it's difficult anymore to remember what actually started the whole thing. So I have to say, my Jewish friends would not believe me, probably believe that. They would not agree that Hamas has a point. They come from the zealotry of a conviction that they have to liberate the world from the wrongs. And the Jews are opposing that. And because of that, they have to go. That's a conviction of Hamas. Most of the Muslim world, Saudi Arabia, and even in Gaza itself, not everybody, most people in Gaza support Hamas. But they support Hamas not necessarily from a religious standpoint, but at this point, because now they had their family members killed by Israeli forces. And once you kill somebody and they kill you, it goes back and forth, then original reason is forgotten. Now it's a blood vengeance, one against another, and then it goes out of hand. So if we rewind the tape and understand how it started, we'll find ways to mend the fences and start getting more to normality, which is possible. So message to Hamas, you guys believe in your cause, but you got it too much too extreme. You have to work with the Jews. You have to work not only with the Jews, you have to work with the Muslims who don't believe necessarily like you. Even non-religious Muslims, non-religious Arabs. You have to work with them too. Get them all together. Build something. Don't build just tunnels. Build hospitals. You build hospitals, but don't put tunnels under the hospitals. Build economy. Ask Jews to help you. And Jews will ask you to help them as well. Okay? That's a message. The Torah says, and I think Quran does too, that Ishmael and Isaac, the children of Abraham, the children of Ishmael, when Abraham, their father Abraham, died, Ishmael and Isaac got together and they buried their father and they buried the hatchet. So Torah predicts, and so does Quran, and so is Bible. The ultimate reconciliation between children of Ishmael and children of Isaac, Jews and Arabs, will come together. But in the meantime, we see it's like a brother still fighting, and we don't want to think about and feel about another side. We just want to. So people will say, even secular people, no, okay, if that's the case, give the Arabs the portion, well, not Jordanian portion, where Palestinians live, but give them a West Bank and Gaza. And Jews say, we wanted to do that. In 1948, there was several maps. But if they have the state, the state have a right to have an army. They have a state, can do what you want. And the state has an army, and if the army have the same attitude as Hamas has today, how long will it take for them to come in, and you can see from West Bank the lights of Tel Aviv? How long will it take them to wipe out Tel Aviv? So it's unnatural for Jews to say, I don't trust that you will not let Hamas run the West Bank, the really Jewish Arab state with an army and airplanes and weapons, to do the same thing as Hamas did on October 7th, but in a greater scale. So if you're an Arab listening to that, you have to agree that there is a point in that. If you say, no, it's not going to happen, we're going to live in peace, well, then you have to demonstrate it. And the best step towards a peace is to do it in small incremental steps. Start building in Gaza your life. As they say, build a Singapore of the Gaza. And once it develops, work with the Jews, work with international community, and tell United Nations, wake up and grow up. And don't be only passing resolutions condemning Israel. Look at all the injustices happening in the world when hundreds of thousands of people get killed and nobody demonstrates on the street. But when the Jews defend themselves, then the Columbia University in the United States will have this indoctrinated Tower of Babel kids with no knowledge of geography rise up and pretend that's a game of liberation of justice. Part of their game of the socialist Marxist philosophy all goes. No religion, just color hair blue, take your shirt off, put a ring through your nose, come out and protest against anything you want. It's freedom in their views. It's not freedom, it's anarchy. It's anarchy. Anarchists want to be free, but look what it has with us. So take this to heed. Again, I come back, many things that I said you probably will pick and say, no, 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 Lev, that's not true. This is wrong, this is wrong. Okay, perhaps. I'm not an angel. I'm not God, I'm not perfect. But it's something for us to think about. So, Abraham Accord is one example. We're just together. What is happening overall in the last dozens of years when Hamas was building tunnels? Saudi Arabia, Israel, Morocco, United Emirates, now Qatar is coming together. They're slowly working together and say, let's get together. And they say to Iran, guys, take it easy. We have a conflict in the family. We'll take care of it in our time. How long time? God does not have time and space. God will take care. God will take care of us. Ishmael and Isaac will come together. But you guys better learn the lesson. So the lesson to us is clear. All the messages God gave us, the Gaza, the ISIS, even from ISIS standpoint, these people with conviction, they believe, just like Hamas does, that caliphate has to be established. But in that, we also Jews believe that Mashiach will come and peace will prevail. We don't do it with a sword. We don't go to Canada and try to establish Sharia law in Canada. Let Canadians come to the census on their own. That's their country. Take care of where you are. Don't be arrogant. This is, I'm talking to all of us, and me myself. Don't be arrogant enough to say that you have a right, that God empowered you to tell another person what to do. You say, the Quran says so, or Bible says so, or Torah says so. Well, Quran and Torah and Bible also say to be tolerant and loving. So if somebody is not taking your point of view, be patient. Be loving. Sit down with him with a cup of coffee and talk about it. It's a lot better than trying to annihilate, no matter what who he is. Let's get a little bit in the end, a little bit of a feel of the Torah. I'm Jewish after all. I mean, I can talk. I would love to hear if anybody even listening to Muslim, Arab Muslim specifically, I would like you to come to our The Perplexed Club and make a presentation about Islam. I'd like to learn more about it. I don't know that much about it. I know a little. I'd like to know more. I'd like to give you a hug. You're my brother. Why wouldn't I? And I think you'd like to know something from me too. So, from a Jewish perspective, according to Zohar and Kabbalah, we are chosen people. Jews are chosen people. Again, I said, not because they were better. He chose us, we're better. He chose us. He says, I chose you for a mission. Your mission is not to be the best basketball player in the world, not to be the best astronaut. Your mission is to take care of the holy things. And God says, you're a holy nation because I'm holy. That's called Kedusha in Hebrew. God concept in the Kabbalah, in the Judaism, God is a husband and Israel is its bride. And our mission, Jews, to bring the sanctity into the marriage between us, nation of God. It doesn't say that it doesn't mean that other nations, Muslims, Arabs, Norwegians, Australians are not God's people. They also God's children, just like us. But it is directly to us. We believe the Torah was given. Quran acknowledges that. Muhammad thanking Jews for receiving the Torah and bringing the Torah then to what he would call fruition of the Islam ultimately from his standpoint. In his case, both of them, holy books of Quran and the Torah, are respected by both Arabs and Jews, by Muslims and Jews. But it also, Kedusha, the word Kedusha also can mean separation. Some Jews took separation, many times they take it literally. We don't want to mix too much with the non-Jews because it will get contaminated with the Tower of Babel concept. And there's a truth to that. You understand? If Jews are involved in politics of America, Talmud warns Jews not to get too close in politics. Mordecai and Esther, in the story of Purim, Mordecai is the one who saved the Jews. You know the story of Esther. She saved and he saved the Jews. But later on, after it's all finished, Mordecai became more involved in Jewish council and too much associations with the politics of Persia, Iran. He was criticized by our sages for going too close after that. Thus, to settle, now he thought, now I'll be a politician. When Jews get too close to politics of a non-Jewish state in America and Europe, bad thing happens. Don't say anything bad about Bernie Sanders. They say don't say Lashon Hara. But I say the worst anti-Semites, historically speaking, do come from the Jews. Because of our desire of the non-religious Jew to be so much like you, so much like non-Jews, I want to prove it to you. Chief Inquisitor, I forget the name of his name, Quasimodo or something like that. I think his mother or grandmother was Jewish. So that people like that want to go overboard to show to you. Hitler also his token Jews there. To show you I'm so loyal to you. I'm so loyal to the state. I'm American first. Yes, I'm Jewish. My wife is no longer. She's not. My kids not Jewish. But I'm Jewish and I'm so much in support of a justice, of the peace, of loving equality for all. So the person wants to go so much that he's ready to sell his brethren, Jews, throw them under the bus, on the pretenses of the social justice. That's unfortunately happens. It wakes them up. At one point, people like that, Bernie Sanders, with all respect, I don't know, I can really say that. If you went to Gaza and express your views of support, as a Jew, I'm not sure how long you'll stay there or you'll survive. So think about that. Well, try that. Go to Gaza. Israel will provide you support and safety. You can say what you want. And tell them about the peace. And tell them about that also how they support, how they have to coexist together, two-state solution. And see what Hamas will tell you about the two-state solution. Go ahead, Bernie Sanders. Take a trip. Buy a ticket. Fly to Tel Aviv. They will escort you to Gaza, and you can say everything you want in support of Gazan people. Ultimately, I think people of Gaza also telling Hamas, or they may be afraid to say it openly, guys, you're going overboard. I understand you want to get religious law to prevail. I'm not religious, you're religious, but you're taking it too far. Work with the Jews. Work with them. So that's what separation means. Separation doesn't mean we want to stay away from society, we want to be with the society, but means God is infinity. And no matter how much I try as a Jew or the Muslim or the Christian, I cannot get infinitely close with God. I can be very, very close, but he always will remain an infinity in comparison. Kabbalah says about some methods. Tanya talks about methods, how to overcome even that barrier, but we're not going to go to right now. Basically, that separation of God, that separation, that Kedusha also means that don't be so cocky, don't be so arrogant, egotistic to think that you know all the answers, that you know Quran so well that you can quote it, that you know Torah so well you can say how many letters in it, or the New Testament. Don't say that how smart you are, how knowledgeable, and how reverent and loving of God you are. Because no matter how high you get, you'll never get close to God because God is infinite. You can try to get closer, you should, but that's what it is. Lead by example. And I believe that our brothers Arabs will learn, and now acceleration is happening. What took us just 4,000 years, and for Arabs, Muslims, 1,300 years now, because of what's happening right now, God gives an example to accelerate the process. To get it one day, wake up in the morning and say, what the heck am I doing? What the heck are we doing? Are we going to destroy the planet in the process of our zealous righteousness? Isn't it time for us to stop? And that's a real message. So I want to end this. It's almost an hour presentation comes out to be, but I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have some disagreements. Fine. I'm not God. I'm not a prophet. I'm not that knowledgeable. But I'm just telling you, I thought I'd share with you what I feel, what I think, what I feel. Kabbalah says our soul, our divine soul is inside of us. It's wrapped by the animal soul. And the divine soul wants to get elevated to God, to Allah. And our animal soul prevents it because animal soul wants to get what's good for me. Eat, sleep, sex, entertainment. That's what and it's our mission. Our divine soul gets our closer through a learning of a Torah and prayers to God And our animal soul actually brings the light of God down to us. It's like a two-way street and unites it. That's the Kabbalah says a possibility for a person to become united with God now in this world before the Olam Haba, before even coming to the next world. That's the same ability exists in Quran, in the New Testament. It's all there. We just have to open and look at it, not with the ego, not with thinking, I'm reading the book because it's the only right book and everything else is wrong, but to say, that's what God gave me. To my buddy, to my friend, he gave him different book, but it's also a good book. And maybe tell me what does your book say, and what does my book say? Let's compare. Not find flaws because of my books. I find how flawed you are. Because of my book, I want to see how good you are. And by that exchange, God, good, will prevail against darkness. God created evil too. And according to Kabbalah, evil is created as a temptation for our free will, which is also a gift of God, to exercise its good side. If God didn't create darkness, there will be no light. You can't see light if there's no darkness. If it's all light, you don't see. You have to have a shade somewhere. So God created this lower world of darkness to be illuminated by the light, by the divine light. Whether you're Muslim, Jew, Christian, Hindu, or whoever, you have to create. That's a mission. You have a purpose. What is your purpose? Your purpose is not to go ahead and kill somebody and become a suicide bomber or the terrorist or a holy or warrior or go to the lawn of Columbia, Yale University, Harvard University and going around with hatred and tell the Jewish student who probably doesn't have even much affiliation with Israel to tell him that you're a Jew, you belong to the gas chamber of Hitler. If you say that, most of the Arabs, Muslims probably should rise and say, that's unacceptable. Don't do that to our Jewish brothers. And the Jews have to have the same respect exercise to the Arabs, to the Muslim brothers, because we have common, and we have family. And to message to Iran, guys, be careful, because we, Jews and Arabs, we're family. You're also family because you're part of humanity, come from Adam. But you're not coming from Shem. You're coming from Japheth. You're not coming from the same situations. If you want to be part of the family, if you come to marry with us, so to speak, you're welcome. But if you're trying to use one of us, some of our tribes, against the other ones, to achieve your holy goals, as you call it, and sit in your palaces on the golden toilets when other people suffer, then we'll tell you, that's not a good thing. It's not going to work. We, Isaac and Ishmael, are coming together. We're going through a difficult process, difficult times, but that's a test for this society. So God now is presenting us, the skies are open, and the signs to the world is, look what I gave you, God says. I gave you the Torah, Quran, Bible. I gave you the rules. I gave you the beautiful world. Don't screw it up. If you want to learn in Harvard, learn physics, learn mathematics, learn history. But if you're walking around, most people think if you went to Harvard, the guy must be IQ 500. Well, you find out, I'm asking the guy in Harvard, where exactly is Philippines? Or how many people are there? How many Arabs live in Israel? Or how many Jews live in Gaza? Or which river to the sea you're talking about? If they can't answer this question, it makes you wonder, what kind of student is that? Is this a person, would I send my son to Harvard to get education that he does know basics? If this guy will become a doctor, I don't know, I want to be going to him for the operation or the surgery because I don't know if he knows much about where organs are. Is the liver on the right side or left side of the body? If he doesn't know any basic geography, he's so ignorant and so angry and so anti-opinion. You look at the media of the West, when they interview people, if you ever notice, they look at a paper and there's like 10 questions. You think it's in the past. I remember CNN media years ago when there was a conflict in Afghanistan, they go to Afghanistan and bullets are flying and they're there. Today, they're sitting in New York with a coffee, with the air-conditioned room, and when they interview the unrighteous. And let's say they interview Israeli spokesman, and he asks a question: is it a genocide? Are you doing this and this? And the guy explained, we are not targeting civilians. We're trying to go against terrorists. Unfortunately, because sometimes they hit. Instead of the guy saying, well, let me think more about it, the guy just, okay, I'll let them, and another go. But don't you know the international court, this, okay. So they're not interviewing. And he's looking when they ask questions, when the guy answers, when the Israeli spokesman answers the question, the interviewer, the correspondent, already is not looking. He's looking at his paper. He's not listening. He's just looking at the next question, and not even the question. That's talking points. He wants to say these points. And unfortunately, sometimes we, on the side of the light, I hope we're on the side of the light, instead of telling the guys, listen, you just asked me the question. Did you hear what I said? Why are you jumping to the next question? Did you hear what I said? Let's discuss one question. This is not just propaganda reading your talking points. If you have questions, if you have a question, if you really, as a correspondent, as a journalist, want to know, then when I'm telling you something, understand. And if you want to, if you don't believe me, you're in London and I'm in Tel Aviv. If you don't believe it, okay, get on a plane, come over here and take a look. If you don't believe it. If you don't believe the massacre at Hamburg on October 7th, if you don't believe that actually people who were killed and murdered, the babies who were burned and killed, if you don't believe that, then conversation can't go any further. At least if you say, okay, that was wrong, that shouldn't be done, I understand the resistance, I understand that people feel they are oppressed, okay, maybe that's your view. But say that, but that's not the way how you express that. You sit at the table and you can say, listen, guys, let's negotiate. Let's talk about it. We are bound to live together. I have no problems Arabs living in Haifa with Jews. I have no problem the Jews live in Ramallah with Arabs. If you want a house, you want to buy it, fine. But I have a problem when you say it's all or nothing. It's all Israel. It's only for the Arabs. If you say that, you can say, in light of what you have said for an hour, it's not fair. You're not on the right side. So it's a light about the darkness. And interestingly, I'm repeating again, we, Jews and Arabs, are on one side. It doesn't look like that. And in reality, we are. It is a Western civilization's Tower of Babel. And I'm not condemning the West for being technologically advanced. It's good. It's good to have these airplanes and to play basketball and to have America is very nice. Green, beautiful, people are polite. It's nice to have, but that politeness crushes quickly. When the crisis hit, where's our politeness? It's a garbage on the streets. It's a torturing businesses that have nothing to do with the conflict. How quickly the culture collapses when it's subjected to the test of patience and love. We'll finish with that. And I hope you'll join the side of light against the darkness. And I have to say, although I said, I believe, I respect atheists, I respect all religions, but I don't respect hatred. Hatred and ego, self-centering, that you know all the answers. I don't know all the answers. I look forward for you to help me, but it must be a dialogue, not preaching, not pointing finger and not yelling in my face, and not blocking the roads and highways. That's a message to the world. The message to us Jews also to wake up and smell the flower and stop bickering. Everybody knows about the political crises, that we for reform and against reform. Everybody who is for the reform crazy, or everybody against reform crazy. We're Jews. Let's sit down and work out. What reform do you want to do? The court has too much power? Why? Not enough power? Why? Let's discuss it civilly. Explain the reason, explain your point, and then find some compromise. Let's find something that unites us all. Reduces this unity in Israel that's happening right now. We see this unity, that attack against innocent people, that is now, of course, back to the left side of the equation, or the right side of the equation, whichever one you want to do. The dark side of the equation will claim, well, it's understanding. The conflict goes back for us. I unrolled conflict 4,000 years back, 6,000 years back, for that matter. Not just 1948, not 67, not 1899, not 1492, not year 2000 ago, not 3,000, not even 3,300 ago. Why they were back? So if you look at the whole history, you can understand that we all have something to fix. For the world, wake up. For the Jews in Israel, it's a lesson to us to start getting even closer. We have gone closer together after October 7th. We have to continue that. And that means not to the extremes of the right, not to become holier than thou religiously, and also not to be disrespectful that I'm going to eat ham and drive on Yom Kippur just dafka to show you how much I don't care. Don't do that. If you don't want to observe Shabbat, if you want to sit home and watch television, that's your choice. I don't approve of that myself, but it's not my job to approve or disapprove. I hope that one day a week, you will put yourself into a mind of holiness of Shabbat and observe it. If you don't, you have to give your own accord to whoever you believe or don't believe. But light will come against darkness. God, Hashem, created darkness as well, and then He gave us a free choice to overcome darkness. And when this darkness illuminated, then the whole illuminated darkness, the wholeness come from upper spheres down to this physicality, joined together. When Arabs and Jews will hold hands and live in peace, and the rest of humanity would follow, that will make out us all humanity as chosen people, the children of Adam. And with that, I wish you all Shabbat Shalom. And the sign behind me says, peace, Shalom, Salam, be well, be healthy, be okay. Let's work together. And let us all say, Amen.